Okay, so Cha, allow me to begin my speech in three, two, and one. Anyways, assuming feasibility, this House prefers direct democracy over representative democracy. Cha. The burden of this debate is then one to probably set a mechanism that then assumes feasibility that necessarily means it's viable and workable, but above all to solve these particular three problems of the debate. Yeah, you may wonder why actually we're kind of preferring direct democracy over representative democracy. But in the very first instance, for clarity, preference actually does not necessarily mean that the other thing is necessarily bad. But what we kind of prefer as team proposition, and we believe that actually direct democracy is kind of a better kind of more alternative as opposed to representative democracy. But then that does not take away or kind of undermine the essence of representative democracy. Yeah, I'll begin with our substantives. In the very first instance, yeah, the problems that then existed within this particular kind of debate are one, we are actually kind of suffering things, problems of insurgency, and that is to say, the parameter of this debate, we shall run in kind of Ugandan and then African countries. That is to say, in particular, these are states that are suffering with the highest rates of insurgency. These are states that are actually kind of suffering with high corruption and manipulation of these particular maybe decisions that are made within society and then the state at large. But even above all, the kind of states that are suffering more of actually kind of high rates of illiteracy, and then the kind of most kind of exacerbating and escalating rates of strikes and demonstration chat. What does that mean? That necessarily means that people then demand one a mechanism and kind of type of democracy that responds to the problems that are within society. That is to say, even the debt burdens are suffered by this particular kind of third world countries, they're actually also something that we have to put in mind and solve in this debate. Yeah, necessarily think that actually how workable our mechanism and how workable direct democracy is that actually in our model it will actually look like where people come and vote online, and that is to say even actually by the use of AI, which are then actually kind of we prevent kind of biases through then that is proper coding and then even assemblies to communities that cannot access technologies. Yeah. In the very first particular of instances, we necessarily think that actually there is a problem that is coexistent within society, that actually that we have riots, we have lack of trust within government. And actually why that is really kind of very kind of exacerbating is that actually the mass population does not feel kind of catered for and considered by government. And as a result, yeah, those are the particular strikes that we see in society. But as a result, actually, chair, but as on a contrary, we necessarily think that actually in a world where there's direct democracy, then that actually kind of increases civic engagement, since now the civilians then feel kind of catered for and considered, or their decisions are considered by government. Yeah. Anyways, in regards to even education, which is one problem that we also saw kind of ought to respond to and then solve in this debate, we're having actually kind of high rates of illiteracy in this particular sorts of countries. Chat. What that calls for is for two things. One, to kind of actually take up a type of democracy, but then increase civic engagement and civic education. And what can actually foster for this kind of world is actually the world of the direct democracy, where then if actually these particular citizens are to take part in this decision making, and that is to say voting in either actually the policies that are to be undertaken by the particular state, then they'll be more incentivized to kind of pursue things like education. But yeah, I think that even in to the extent that these particular states are suffering things like insurgency, there is no kind of catering for the majority kind of actually there's no accurate kind of catering for minority groups, and that is actually the insurgent governments that we see. That is why when you see Museveni, when they come as the NRA kind of insurgent group, they come actually because then they don't feel considered by government. Yeah. We necessarily think that the world of team opposition is a world where there are things like insurgency then do exist in that particular instance. But even in that particular regard, we necessarily think that we solve that problem by actually accurate representation of these majority interests. Yeah. We necessarily think that this debate is also there to kind of cater and actually resonate with the problems that are in existence within society. That is to say, the manipulation that even heightens the rates of corruption. Yeah. We necessarily think that in states like Uganda, we suffer the most kind of highest rates of corruption, highest unnecessarily. We necessarily think that actually we have to kind of vote for or prefer a type of democracy that then kind of eradicates that kind of work. Yeah, we necessarily think that there's no actually there's a decreased potential rate of manipulation when it comes to the world of direct democracy, as opposed to then a world where we're having representative kind of democracy. Yeah, we necessarily actually I want to conclude my speech telling you that we preference does not mean doing away with the other thing on a contrary, but rather it means that this particular kind of mechanism or direct democracy then gives us a more result and more benefit as compared to representative democracy. Chair. My second speaker will come and elaborate to you actually what kind of benefit comes about with us doing with a representative democracy that is not bad in of itself. Chair, I beg to submit.
Just confirm if I'm audible enough. Good. All right, I'll start my timer in the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Panel. Understand that direct democracy, while contemplating or trying to appeal in this motion, basically need to look at how we're going to encounter that impediments in larger, and then look at how we're going to look at how we're going to invade the diverse societies, right? We need to look at how this basically right, and then see how they need to understand. One, same government thinks about scenarios whereby they want to look at the type of countries they advocate for a world whereby they have their own rights, right? But first, we as team government, they come and then show you how scalability challenges and the areas I think this case to bring about in this debate, right? And understand that moreover, the multiplicity of modern issues demands to specialize and then try to expertise this in this debate. Because they show you how a realm where elected representatives excel, right? Because we try to show you now we show you how does democracy operate in the efficiency and then protection of minority rights, and then how we're going to have the right right. Then we try to show you how we're going to have trade to emerge from these things you get in my speech rebuttal and then context, right? So I'll try to show you how white team opposite has a better word to this debate. And we get to show you how the scalability of that participation initiates in popular societies, right? Whereby they try to show you how it's going to be logistic and how difficult it's going to be on the world, and then how it gets problematic in the debate, right? Because they try to show you how the system not only addresses the country, but the people, but it tries to look at how direct democracy, but also tries to provide structure that would system can try to look at in their world. But we are still up to try to show how direct democracy and that will. Pardon? Can I be heard?
Engage in a POI.
Okay, no, thank you. So what I try to show you why both the direct democracy and representative democracy are forms of democratic governance, and then try to show how we're going to define how decisions are made and the role of citizens and try to be made, right? Because try to show you that direct democracy is often considered impractical for large and diverse solution, right? Because try to show you how this direct democracy, like team government, tries to elaborate and then show in this debate that doesn't really say what like come into this debate, right? Because we try to show you a world whereby if every citizen would need to be actively involved in decision making, then understand that what actually we need to understand that this cannot become unmanageable, right? Because we need to look at how the population tries to increase in number, right? Because we're showing you how these people and then democracy basically comes in. One needs to allow that this election going to be on individual basis, and then try to make decisions on behalf of their citizens. Can you initiate your PI? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the first is going to engage in the API since they're asking for it. So we're trying to show in our that if we try to make this process more scalable, then understand that the right democracy that the government tries to advocate for is most practical in small communities, both basically they fail to understand because we try to show them that world whereby people can gather easily to discuss and vote on issues. But to look on our world, we try to show that larger populations, it becomes logistical and then challenging for everyone to participate directly in decision making, right? Because we try to show that if decision making basically comes into this world, then it works best in small communities where people can easily together and discuss what they basically want and then try to put it into discussion, right? We try to show in our world whereby we try looking at larger societies what whereby millions of people then come and then then have to basically to vote like involve themselves in everyone decision making and then try to look at how they're going to allow citizens to delegate about education. What is the team government basically supposed to look at in this way? Because we try to show scenarios whereby if this democracy requires the time consuming process, then that as a regular referendum would basically matter in this debate. You need to understand that it's going to call for town hall meetings and then try to make it less efficient to actually making in quick decisions, right? Because look at how representative democracy allows like for the selection of their interests, right? Because it tries to look at how it's going to expertise and various foods to make informed decisions, complex decisions, right? Because we try to look at how direct democracy then comes in this debate. When I look at how their decisions on their board, how this kind of look like, one, their decisions basically be influenced by more public, which is said by the first, right? Because the first then throws us issues where they look at how the public is going to be settled, and then look at how they're going to try to exploit that, and then have potential and all that. But we're trying to show them on our world that we will try to allow for the election of individuals and try to show them how we're going to expertise this. And no, thank you. What I'm trying to show them that's going to be right. We're trying to show them now that's going to be often impractical to add, like to try to have an expert whereby every citizen has his own right, whereby having it in the long run, whereby they have the on every policy issue, right? So we try to look at how representative democracy can focus on understanding and such complex issues, right? Because I to show that if team government then those whereby the direct democracy can be unfortunate, then understand that especially for one routine or minor decision, then our audience shows a better one, because we try to show now that if it allows for more efficient decision making processes, then as the officers can take that studying, they try to make sure.
Hey, am I audible? Hey, can anyone hear me? Oh, good. Can I be heard? Can I be heard? Can I confirm audibility?
You're audible, clearly audible.
Okay. I hope.
Audible.
Okay. Let me first get my notes, and I give my speech today. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Democracy is a system of governance that seeks to maximize accountability, representation, and participation, but above all, it seeks to get results and to give the citizens the sort of accountability and the sort of reforms that they need in order to live a sustainable life. A team that wins this debate is a team that shows which kind of democratic system then gives its sorts of virtues to different citizens. Two burdens we have as side proposition within this debate. We have to show you firstly why direct democracy is something that is justified, and secondly, why it then gains us more benefits. I'm going to do two things in my speech. I'm going to start off with responses, and secondly, I'm going to move on to our second constructive argument. To start off, what do we get from side proposition? The only argument we get from side proposition is that direct democracy is impractical because there are too many people existing within status quo. Four responses to this. Firstly, we tell you that the motion assumes that this is something that is practical existing. This debate isn't about the practicalities of this particular model, but this debate is about an evaluation of when we put this model within status quo, how frequent is it actually going to be able to work in order to gain these different citizens the kind of necessities they need. But even if that wasn't the case, we think that even if when all citizens are required to vote within this system, even when we get only 60 citizens to vote, it then still counts as just because the majority of individuals have voted it correct. Notice that democracy stands on the principles that the majority vote rules. At a point in time where we only get 60% of the citizens voting, we think it is then justified to pass this particular model because it then represents all the kinds of things that we need within the democracy. Thirdly, we think that before governments then pass this particular policy, they are willing to give different citizens the sort of information that they need in order to make informed choices. At that particular instance, we think any arguments to do with citizens not being informed do not stand in this debate, because firstly, we have the media giving information to these different citizens. We have the educational institutions trying to put information within these citizens. And finally, we have different groups of governments trying to put up systems to sensitize different individuals about different policies existing in status quo in order to make referendums better and in order to make those referendums effective, because the sole reason why these governments then exist is to give this sort of utility to citizens. But also finally, we think that efficiency is something that is guaranteed on our side of the house at a point in time where I give back the citizens their power, and that is basically going to be my sort of extension within this debate. So our first extension is on how we then minimize elite influence within the vast majority of instances. This is stemmed from the idea that the fact that these different people need a lot of money to campaign in order to be voted back within the representative democracy, it is normally influenced by the elites within the vast majority of instances. Why is this true? Two things. Normally, elites play these different individuals' money in order to give them in order to them for them to pass their different campaigns, and in order for them to go to different citizens and in different regions in order to make themselves known within these regions. But also, secondly, we tell you that at a point in time where these elites then pay money to these individuals to pass their campaigns, they normally want these individuals to transcend the different policies that they necessarily want in status quo. What do these policies look like? These policies look like policies that are going to favor these individuals and these rich individuals within society only. And these are policies that are only going to keep them at the top of the class and to keep their capitalistic desires while neglecting the lower class man. The harm of this is that, firstly, the fact that these policies mainly favor the elite people within society, they're the only individuals who grow. This means that it creates a gap between the poor and the rich within society. And that essentially means that there is no growth for the lower class people within society. But also, secondly, the elections that are led are never really held to the point where citizens want to vote those individuals. But this is basically coerced choice within the vast majority of instances, because this person has been able to give you the soap, this person has been able to give you the money, this person has been able to give you those basic needs. So in most instances, even when they have bad policies, citizens tend to vote in these individuals because these individuals give them those sorts of necessities that they need. The harm of this is that, firstly, their kind of democracy is the democracy where individuals are coerced into these choices. Notice that this is harmful because those are not the principles that a democracy stands for. A democracy stands for representation, and representation through citizens having that sort of informed choice and that choice where they are not coerced doing different things. But also, secondly, at a point in time where it's only the rich people who are benefiting within that sort of democracy, it becomes harmful because the different citizens are not all benefiting. But notice that on our side of the house, when we give back the power to the citizens, we then need to get these particular instances because, one, notice that these citizens are going to vote in. Even if it takes long, the citizens vote in policies that are actually going to benefit them and policies that they necessarily want, because it becomes hard for you to coerce each and every individual to vote that sort of policy you want when you don't have power. But also, secondly, we think that this gives back the citizen the power, and that is something that is very important. I rest my case.
Well, I would just like to confirm it audible enough. Alright, so I'll begin my speech. Okay, yeah, I'll begin my speech in three, two, one. A word seat by team proposition is a word which covers or has inefficiencies as we look in our first speech, whereby they claim they're having their democracy is having different minds or different people actually taking part in the government of the country, governance of the country. So we look at their case as having different people with different minds, and when they have different minds coming together and governing, we're having different people actually taking part in the decision making of the country. They have different minds, different people taking part. Therefore, we are going to see that they're going to be having divisions in the decisions that they make or the policies that they're actually making. Hence, we are going to see that the majority of the people or majority of the people in government actually going to or are going to have their policies taken through and ignoring what is just in the decisions or the ideas or choices of the minority. Therefore, we see that the minority actually going to be dissatisfied. They are going to be dissatisfied with whatever the majority have come about, and so we are going to see the dissatisfaction. They are going to result to actually going through riots, and actually we're going to see a point whereby we see political stability coming up in the country, which is actually disastrous. The government that we see where there's democracy. Then we also look at a point whereby they talk about how efficient their system is going to be. We look at this as seeing the West democracy actually going to they talk about the original referendum where they have very many meetings, which is actually going to be time consuming, very many meetings because they actually have to come up with a different or a certain policy. They have to consist to very many meetings or have consistency of meetings. this is going to actually become consuming, and it is actually going to question their efficiency as the government. So we as team proposition, we actually see this as a representative democracy that is incorporating balances and checks within the structure of government. Just one group doesn't gain more power over another group. When each party is actually performing their duties as they should, that representative government or democracy is quite efficient because it is designed to have people work together, so there is a spirit of cooperation within our government. Furthermore, looking at this, we actually look at the scalability of their system. The scalability, that is where we talked about it in practicability of their system, whereby actually their system is actually only resorted or it's actually applied to developing countries. That means it is actually applied to usually small groups of people or small communities where people can easily discuss. That is where actually their system is incorporated. And for us, our system, which is representative democracy, we have been doing for larger communities, where it is quite logistic and cumbersome for us to actually have direct democracy. Therefore, people have to delegate and actually have members represent them and actually have selection of people or individuals, capable individuals to expertise in ideas in different sectors. So their world actually doesn't favor our world in a way that people for us in our it provides it simplifies decision making process, whereby instead of getting everyone to vote on everything, a representative democracy allows decisions to be made by a group of elected officials. In some instances, the leader of the nation may be given the power to make certain decisions on behalf of the electorate. Because of this assignment and delegation, decisions can be made quicker, and this makes government more responsive to a potential emergency situations. And when we also look at this as a countries can be built to put in place to limit the individual actions of an elected official. That is actually how we are going to be managing our system. We recall petitions and similar rules can be used within a representative democracy of ours to allow a district or to allow a district or allow the people to remove an elected official who is not meeting their expectations. So this is actually stealing or it's actually meeting the extra efficiency or it's actually meeting how our system is actually going to be effective. But rather, or continuing, additionally, people still have a say in how their government operates in our system. Although representative democracy would actually take away, that's actually what same population would say. Although representative democracy would actually take away the decision making power of individuals over national policy, it has actually completely eliminated the influence on the government. If the population is dissatisfied with the performance of their elected official, that's actually what I previously
Yes.
said, they can vote to that person in the next election cycle. And with that, I beg to my case.
My audible. Okay, let me set my timer. Okay, I'm going to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. So I think this debate is simple. I think we needed to evaluate which side promotes democracy best. I think when Reimer comes in her speech and talks about what democracy entails, about representation, accountability, I think those are very crucial things. Whichever side proves that they have better of those things, I think it's the better democracy and wins this debate. I'll do a little bit of engagement before I go into weighing. The first thing or the main thing which we get from second op is the whole idea of like how it's hard for people to work together. Chair, understand one thing. I don't think it's about working together. I don't think unity and working together is important in this debate. I don't think it should be considered for two reasons. One, because even in representative democracy, you can never have everyone on the same page. That's why parliaments never have it's non-bipartisan, which means there's no form of democracy where everyone is going to agree on one single thing. It can't exist. So I don't think this debate generally is about how well people are going to work together, because you will never have it. I think what democracy entails is majority rule, and which form of democracy has majority rule. That is to say, when most of the citizens say that we don't want a certain bill passed, let's say the age limit, but a select cluster of people who they put into power and who they trusted say otherwise, then it becomes unfair and it's no longer representation. That is no longer fair democracy. When you have direct democracy, we do consider there are going to be conflicting views, as there is in any kind of representation and any kind of democracy. Why our side still is better is because we ensure that every voice is heard, and whatever decisions are passed is what we call majority rule. The majority rule, and the majority of the people have decided on something. The second main thing that they talked about is the whole idea of how people are not going to have access to these kinds of things. I think Rema makes it very clear. I think whenever you are in a form of a direct democracy, votes are only done when people have been informed. That is to say, there are always massive campaigns to inform people about certain things. That is what happened in 2006 during the referendum, when people were made to choose whether they had to go to multi-party system or to stay in single-party system. What happened is that before that kind of vote, there were massive campaigns, information campaigns for over 12 months. That means that before a vote comes into place, people are well informed. That takes out the whole idea that people need to be informed, that people do not have access to the information. I think the weighing in this debate is quite simple. I think what Prop brings out, I don't think it's really engaged in by OP that much. I'm going to show you why Reimer's argument is very important in terms of weighing and why it brings a debate. I think when she talks about this whole elite influence, why this is important is because of two reasons. One is because in direct democracy, you promote a transparent decision-making process. When citizens directly participate, there's greater transparency. On their side, a select cluster of elite people are the ones taking charge. Why is this very harmful, and why is it now showing why their side is harmful? Because one, decisions are not based on majority rule, but secondly, only a few people make decisions, which mitigation of power is concentrated on certain people, capitalistic people in most of the scenarios, who have a gain at the expense of citizens. Why this is very harmful is because on their side, you undermine the principles of democracy, the fundamental principles of democracy. This becomes important because on their side, what happens is that you will never have legitimacy in your government, and people will not have trust in your government systems. And that is why the first speaker or the first proposition's whole idea of insurgency becomes very important, and it wasn't engaged in. The whole basis of why he was talking about insurgency is because he was trying to show you that in their side, what happens is that when people's views are not heard, they are more likely, and this is the key thing, they are more likely to rise up and rebel against the government because their views are not being heard. On our side, and it came out in his speech, those things are mitigated to a significant level, because on our side, what happens is that people's views are heard, and decisions which are passed are based on the majority and what people want. We win this debate on two simple clashes, because it's two simple clashes. One, we show you about the harmful effects in terms of elite rule and why certain people, when they take charge, it becomes problematic. But secondly, on an analysis, we also show you why it is very important for everyone to be involved in that process. For up to have won this debate, they needed to counteract that whole idea of why it's just for a few people to hold this position, even though most of the times they make decisions based on their own mindset and their own wills, their own desires, rather on the needs of the entire population. Because of that, it is a clear prop win. Proud to propose.
I would like to confirm audibility. And forgive me, I'm kinda in an unstable place, but I think I will be audible. So I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Pano, understand that team government fails to understand our argument in today's debate. Now, Pano, what will I do in my argument, in my speech? Pano, first of all, I will give you the classes in today's debate, and also in the debate, and give you which team wins a certain class. So, Pano, let's begin on the class of transparency decision making. So, Pano, they come and claim that, you know what, in their world of direct democracy, we shall have they will have transparent decision making. In other words, since all people are all people are active in decision making, we shall have transparent decision making. Well and good. Now, understand that, Pano, in this world, we are different people that have different minds. We are different people that are built on different grounds. We are different people that can think differently at a certain point in time, right? Pano, again, think about that. Again, think, Pano, that now, when you come to now make a decision, it will now bring in a fact that now, me and you, me and him, me and the other person, we shall have different ideas. It will not necessitate that we have to think the same way, because we all have different backgrounds. So kind of think about it. On the fact of different decision making, what will it bring in? It will bring in the divisionalism. What do we talk about divisionalism? Now we think about it now, Pano, it will not bring in that now, you know what, this policy support this decision and the other people do not support the other decision. We have our decision, which means we have to divide ourselves and now think of what we can do. Now, first of all, Pano, think about it. Think about what such a thing can bring in. In other words, in their words, we shall be seeing political instability. In other words, we shall see what? We shall see people being killed. We shall see peace not being there. Because in their world, they are opting for something that will now bring in political instability, which does not happen in our world. Pano, they come and say that, you know what, in our world, a few people do what? A few people
Can you get?
It is a representative democracy, which means by the time someone has to make a decision for his constituents, that person has been sent by that person, by the people he's representing. In other words, still, and by the time that person is now coming to now give this decision, he has to first go and consult these people. And when he consults these people, they will now tell him, you know what, so we want this, this, and that. And when they decide this, this, and that, that's what we will now go and decide. And in the long run, you find that the whole government will have to decide on something that now favors the whole people. Now, Pano, understand again in today's debate, they come and claim about legitimacy. But now, Pano, come and look at this. Legitimacy is all about having, maybe we shall have a government that will be acknowledged and accepted by the people. Like, for example, it will have to give the people the best services or whatsoever, it should be accepted by the people. But now, how will that come in when typically you are seeing indifferences, when typically you are seeing political instability, when typically you are seeing divisionalism, when you are seeing all sorts of negativity in their world? So, Pano, I don't understand what we tell you in today's debate. Pano, I can tell you that in the world, it's kind of, we have time consuming. It wastes a lot of time. In other words, think about it, Pano. How long will it take for all of the citizens of Uganda to now come and do what? And vote for a certain idea? If they think it's an online thing, still, it has to take a lot of time. But now think about it, Pano. What if it's a representative democracy? Where me as a representative of a certain constituents, I've been given the authority and I'm going to represent the decisions that are from my constituents. Pano, again, look at this. They come and claim that, you know what, in our world, these people are the only ones that benefit. But then how does that thing happen? Now, you see, Pano, they come and give examples of bribing and whatsoever. But now, Pano, again, think about it. It's not from the same individuals they have to decide themselves. They are the ones now choosing for the what? Choosing the people to represent them, then, which means it doesn't lie in the thing of which people benefiting. Now, Pano, remember that now, what are we bringing in today's debate? Pano, we come and give you that in their world we do not have that practical thing. In other words, we are seeing things not being efficient. Like, for example, it will not be efficient and people will not have to earn a lot from it. Now, come again, look at this. In their world, they are only going to take ideas that do what? That favor the majority. In other words, the minority will not and will not get anything. The minority will not earn anything in today's debate. But I can understand that now. In our world, which is the representative democracy, we have a constitution that governs us. We have a constitution, even though I represent a certain constituency, even though I have to take the majority case, I still have a constitution that governs me. Which means if whatever the majority were wrong, so you mean we have to go with the majority? That's what we are trying to mean. What if the majority is against the development of the nation? Are we supposed to go argue with the majority? No. But now in our world, since we have a constitution that governs us, which means our world is now coming our world will now come in a way that now, you know what, we shall have a constitution, we shall have even the minority groups being favored, we shall have every person being favored, and now you see now it comes back to the legitimate government. You find that in our world it's when it's where we shall have the legitimacy. Now, I didn't understand that now. Come and claim, you know what? They come and claim that, you know what? It's they claim they come and say that they claim that people do not benefit in our world. That now, since they want each person, the citizens have the power to do what? Citizens have the power to now include themselves in decision making. But not, no. Think about it. If at all citizens have the power to decide what is right and wrong, it's not that all citizens will have to choose what is right? What if now, according to the access of the majority, of benefiting, of making it beneficial to the majority, what if the majority chooses something that is not, shall we have to go for that? Does not come in. So, Pano, we think in our world, we achieve more than in their world. So, Pano, allow me to submit.
So yeah,
Opposition has a reply.
Can I be heard? All right, so I'll start my timer. I think it's 3 minutes. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I know. I think that team that basically takes tonight's debate is basically the team that understood what democracy has a better impact and analysis in this debate. Looking at the case study of opposition, basically isn't you a better world compared to the world that team government basically advocates? Because we showed you while representative democracy has its merit, it's not without its flaws, right? Because we showed you issues such as corruption, lack of accountability, and disconnect between the representatives and the electorate can still arise, right? Because we tried to show you how different societies may adopt variations of democratic systems. becomes a major clash in this debate. Because we like to show you how the realities of this contemporary governance can require a balance in active citizen participation, and whereby it will try to look at the delegation of authority to elected officials. Right? Because we try to show from past speech, whereby we show them a scenario whereby the efficient functioning of active democracy allows citizens to entrust their representatives with the responsibility of grappling. They understand that there's going to be like freeing individuals to focus on their daily lives, which is therefore to engage in this debate. But what does this debate for? Because we try to show, I'll try to engage them in that case scenario, but we try to show them how the stability inherent in it going to be representative democracy was going to contribute to continuity and planning, right? Because we try to show them how we're going to address our concerns and then show them how these concerns are associated with the potential vulnerability of this, right? Because we try to then look at the instance of them and how
Yeah. So I have 3 minutes. Okay. Anyways, let me set my timer. Yeah, I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Just specifically why team proposition wins this debate, they actually own 4 core principles. One, just to begin with the misconception that was then exhibited throughout the whole debate. One, actually team opposition loses the debate at the point where they've even failed to understand what we call preference in this whole debate. Yeah, we come to clarify to you first speech, second, and third speech that actually preference does not necessarily mean that we are actually very much against what the alternative then kind of exists in that world. But in that regard, kind of tell actually they even fail to justify to us how feasible or how they assume feasibility on their kind of world. So yeah, even on that principle, we think that actually opposition likely loses this debate. But yeah, we even justify to you that actually see with the problems we cite out from our first speech, even second, even third, that actually still exist within society or within a particular set that they fail to solve. Yeah, at that point, we think actually team opposition then loses this debate. Yeah, we give you principles that one for the fact that actually we have insurgencies that then occur as a result of maybe some particular kind of minority groups that then don't feel kind of represented. And we tell you actually, we show you clearly in our world how we actually even kind of accurately represent the minority or these the interests of the minority groups or the minority kind of interests. We show you how we kind of actually eradicate insurgencies in the very first instance. We show you actually from our second speech even how we shoot up to accountability that is proper, that is actually lacking in our particular sets, and that is why we experience the highest of rates of corruption. We necessarily think that team opposition does then not actually respond to the problems that then do exist within that particular regard, and that is why they largely lose this debate. But yeah, we also necessarily think that actually team opposition fails to then understand the core principles and aims of democracy, and that is why actually they largely lose this debate, because actually we don't at any point consider the fact that actually representative democracy is something very bad. But in a comparison to direct democracy, we necessarily think that direct democracy is really good. And that is why actually even in history, well, in ancients, they used to have actually kind of assemblies, and guys the citizens could vote about particular decisions and policies. But even we see it in actually states like Switzerland. Yeah, I won't go in those details because we show them in transpiring in our debate. Yeah, we also tell you that actually we have actually faster decision making that then exists on our side of the world, where people then will not actually have to go to parliament to then kind of debate or to hold debates and thousands of sessions, but they'll just have to come make effort because these particular persons we necessarily think that actually even in our world we get things like simple speeches, that these people are going to be more of incentivized to pursue things like education. So yeah, necessarily think that actually we vote for team proposition because we actually solve the problems that are within the state, but also largely kind of benefit everyone. Yeah, I beg to submit.